It's been a while since we talked or since we organized last session, last webinar some months ago. We have been really busy navigating this complexity of COVID-19 and a lot of uncertainty in many ways. But at the same time, we have been quite busy really focusing on our digital developments at Startup Commons. And the session of today is basically a result of our progress on that, and really wanted to share this progress with all of you, and start also looking at doing more things in the coming months. So we have divided the session in mainly in three blocks. So basically, we have a first part where we will try to provide some context around this project, and then we will have like a second block around basically how to join this collaborative project that we are organizing, and basically describing main components of that project. So basically to bring more clarifications around that. And then the last part, I would say that's the most important thing, is basically to collect all your questions, all your doubts around this project, and try to clarify all of them. So as a starting point, as a first step, I would like to pass the torch to Balto, so he can also share with you some background information about this project and contextualize a little bit.
All right, thanks, Oscar. So we'll share my screen. Is that visible for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. So let me also test that. Yeah, the video sharing doesn't show, but I'll continue with the presentation. So let me get back to that. So yeah. So basically, going from the foundation of things, laying the groundworks for the collaborative project approach, I want to go basically through the very basics of the startup ecosystems, and a little bit also from the startups in general, just to make sure that we'll get everyone kind of on board. A very quick rundown of some of the key items to have in the back of the mind, what have led to this collaborative project approach that we are going through. And for all of those who are interested in more detailed insights and understanding about ecosystem development more broadly, we have the free Ecosystem Development Academy available on our website. And if you don't find that or don't get the code to access it for free, let us know, and we're happy to share that. So first of all, when we want to set always a little bit of the terminology clear. So when we are talking about startups, then we are talking about innovation entrepreneurship, because oftentimes even this term is quite vague, but we have also find this very efficient way to simplify that and also combine those ecosystems that overlap. And the other kind of dimension into startups is, of course, the technology aspect and digital more broadly. So basically the startups are working in the intersection of these key disciplines that generate and basically how they create value, how they scale that value to help of digital, and how they capture value with the innovative business model. But basically nothing moves forward unless someone does something, and that's the role of the entrepreneurial attitude function in these three key areas. Also, the startups basically separate from a let's say normal small business by the nature of not having a validated business model, and that validation happens through the process of their journey, and then also that there is a built-in grow high ambition and a scalable business model with a team. But scale-ups can also, of course, merge from small businesses through some transition that they may go through and find a new product, or let's say the next generation joins in a family business or whatnot. So it's not only that everything starts from scratch. But nevertheless, the target is to get from wherever the starting point is into a valid market validated business model with a scalable business model. And we use this startup development framework. Basically, this is an open standard published under Creative Commons that we have iterated several years, and that is widely adopted globally, that we use to simplify and get all the key terminology into this framework to be able to then more clearly identify startups in their different development phases as they go through that validation and scaling process, or formation, validation, and scaling process. And then one of the key aspects of building startups is that they're not only building the product or solution, the market side of things, even though that's the most visible thing and that's where everyone tends to focus more. They also have to build their team, skills, commitment, values, culture, agreement, business processes, and everything along the way as well in a balanced manner. So all of that goes into that, what startups are and how they emerge and how they develop throughout their own development processes. And of course, this whole exercise is a balanced act, trying to develop all of those different aspects in a balanced manner, not scaling any dimension too far ahead without also making sure that the other parts of the whole startup develops also in that sense. And then when we look at startup ecosystems, then ecosystems really are this invisible common infrastructure. So it is like you have your roads and parks and things in the city, but because ecosystems are less tangible, they are all of the ingredients that interact inside the ecosystems, all of those policies helping the ecosystem to perform better, as well as all of the support functions and services that all of those combined, and the connections, visible, physical, and so forth, that are not so clear, are what forms the ecosystems. And then when we look at these different aspects, there are innovation ecosystem on its own, there's entrepreneurship ecosystem on its own, and then the startup ecosystem really is what is the combination and the overlap of these, where innovation entrepreneurship happens in a format of a startup company. And when we look at these in through the lens of development phases, this is basically how we can assess startup ecosystems more broadly, that they are the overlapping parts of innovation ecosystem and the entrepreneurship actors building innovations throughout these development phases is what forms the startup ecosystems. And in this field, all of the countries really are in the digital economy, the global digital economy. Countries are competing to have world's leading startup ecosystems to help sustain their economy. And now more than ever, through the impact of COVID, of course, these topics are very high on the agenda and priority of within all of the countries to help, bounce back economically from the impacts of COVID, and that will of course continue. And there's yet again more need for new innovations, new efficiency, new business growth to help revitalize the economy. But all of this really requires a effective coordination and collaboration between different organizations in their different roles to work together. So I think most of the ecosystems that are aware of these things are looking and following closely and taking part of these global rankings that, for example, Startup Genome and others are creating. And these are highly important for many ecosystems. But what goes behind that ranking is all the things that happen 360 days in the year, other than just the moments of when these reports are released. All of the different ecosystems live in their own different maturity levels that we have created also a model basically to help communicate and seeing, basically to assess, specifically if you are not part of that ranking as an ecosystem or only getting started, or understanding what actions can help to get to the next level and so forth. We have more complete descriptions about these available. I'm not going to spend too much time on those now. But I also want to share how does all of this look really on a global perspective. Is that it's not only the aspect of city ecosystems. There are, of course, in any given country, there are several cities with their own startup ecosystems that should collaborate. Oftentimes, these ecosystems are competing, but they are at the same time also collaborating because all of the cities want their, attract talent and so forth. Then there are regional levels that specifically look at how these ecosystems can collaborate, and they focus a little bit different aspects that the local ecosystems focus more on the ground activities, events, in-person networks and so forth, where regional level is then more collaboration between ecosystems and already connecting with business vertical ecosystems and other regions in other countries. And then, of course, there are country levels with multiple regions and multiple cities. So there's already significant collaboration needs and opportunities within, a region or state in a country or in the country level as well. But then there are also these business vertical ecosystems that are more driven typically and more orchestrated by big multinational companies. Let's take a medical industry, oil industry, energy, and so forth. And in local ecosystems, those are more driven by government or public and the local bigger companies that may have international aspects for sure. But this is basically looking at these ecosystems from a global perspective. And in these different levels, there are these connection points between these business vertical ecosystems. And then there are also functions that overlap, like funding organizations, business angel networks in a country are usually active in all of the different ecosystems. Accelerators are national or internationally oriented, not only for one ecosystem where they are located at, they are inviting participants from many cities and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. And in these different levels, we have, of course, people, SMEs, startups, then we have communities, we have then local ecosystems and so forth. And what we have validated in more than six years in our work, hands-on work on the ground in different ecosystems around the world, that everyone is struggling with a lot of the same issues, and very few of those issues are actually unique to their ecosystem when we are talking about ecosystem level challenges. And most importantly is this connectivity and siloed behavior. And in a very early maturity level ecosystems, they are these what we call also ecosystems, that they are yet to identify the benefits of collaborative effort and are still in transitioning to ecosystem mindset in their own ecosystem. And sometimes that is at organizational level between organizations, sometimes that's between public and private actors, and so forth. But before these types of things can be overcome, those are all hindering the overall development. And we have seen, of course, like many, the significant impacts of the COVID, mainly in the digital developments and also the collaborative mindset developments, which are all very key things also towards the project that we are looking to initiate. So the missing big picture is really that one of the key problem in ecosystem development is to collect and maintain holistic picture of all the constantly developing and evolving ecosystem parts, measuring the services and results, different development projects, policy actions, keeping inventory of all of this, and communicating that information to all of the key stakeholders that are making decisions independently at their organization level and so forth, regardless, and together with other ecosystem actors. So because of this all, that leads to low impacts. Funding calls are not really fitting to reality on the ground activities or more operational level. So those looking at policy level or strategy level have different perspectives than those working at operative level support functions, leading to wrong conclusions, wrong assumptions, and that all starts from poor ecosystem understanding. So why is it such a challenge then? Well, here are some of the key challenge reasons. So lack of common vision is that depending on the perspective, things look different. And this goes into many different perspectives, whether you are on the support provider side looking at startups or local startups looking at support functions, whether that's policy making, looking at what happens in the field or vice versa, and so forth. The second challenge is this lack of ecosystem thinking, that prior there is ecosystem thinking, it's of course very almost impossible to develop ecosystem based functions and approaches. The information disconnectivity, that this is between people, this is between organizations, so it's between people in the same organization, it's between people in different organizations, it's between organizations, it's between applications, it's between information inside of those applications ultimately. And the more connectivity that is tried to build from one application to another, to a third, and so forth, this problem keeps increasing. Another challenge is that there is no designated driver. There is no clear actor in the ecosystem until typically later maturity phases, that who has the mandate to look at the ecosystem development purely from ecosystem development role and responsibility function, from orchestration perspective, without running any of the underlying support functions like university or accelerator or incubator as their primary thing. But what is that collective team or organization that looks for the ecosystem as a whole? And then this sustainability by design is often missing, that everything is very much project-based, typically from external funding sources, that when the project comes to an end, there is a disconnect between the continuum in the ecosystem development as a whole, while at the same time there are organizations that are permanently operating there, Sometimes politics or policy changes or government changes have huge impacts on needing to reorganize everything that are publicly funded activities. And this whole continuum and sustainability by design is very much lacking. And as next steps, so from getting away from these short-term objectives to long-term impacts is what we have been focusing really hard this year to look at this. And we have chosen to look from the lens of the ecosystem mapping as the first item, because it's something that really helps everyone, whether they are in early maturity level or whether they are in the longer term. If this is not properly initiated or if it's probably maintained all the time, it continues to be a challenge for all the other things following. So mapping, of course, is getting sense of the ecosystem, getting more organized perspective, and getting things more in order at the information level. And it starts from looking at different organizations and their services in this type of canvas on top of these two dimensions that startups are developing themselves and the services catering to help them accomplish those things in their journey. And ultimately getting to much more clarity in what those services are and at what development phases they are relevant. And then you could imagine here clicking any of these items to get a more complete picture of any of those services in question. So one of the then big action or areas in the digital aspect is the digital aspect and how that connects with all the non-developer, non-technical ecosystem development functions. And here is a good reminder of looking at this, that startups are very much about these three key elements, and so should also be the startup ecosystem development, that it's not only to be entrepreneurial as an ecosystem developer, it's not only to be innovative in coming up with solutions, but it's also leveraging digital for the scalability, measurability, data collection, data distribution within the ecosystem. So when we look at the ecosystem, ecosystem development, the question is, what are all of the tools in these in-between organizations, in between service hands-off, in between the process and support process handoffs between organizations? What information needs to be collected? How is that organized? How that information is passed and so forth. So basically that leads to the aspect of infrastructure, of how to get that going, how to get that set up, and looking from the lens again on that flow canvas on different applications. And this is basically the bigger picture of where we should be looking at. And this is where then we are starting to get on the aspect of the collaborative development project targets. And as there are many ecosystems in the region, in the country, then it's also about the connectivity between the ecosystems, not only within the ecosystem. And all of these are commonly solvable problems. The more these are solved in isolated silos, the less connectivity there is between them and more resources are wasted in developing them. And these are the foundations of starting to invest and build a common infrastructure within the ecosystems and between the ecosystems. So the key is really to make it common, compatible, and shareable across all ecosystems. And here, our key frustrations have really been in the past 6 years with 30 ecosystems at ground level that, as mentioned, each are struggling with fragmented ecosystem information and connectivity problems. We are very tired of doing ecosystem development project just one silo at a time, because it's extremely time consuming and all of those collaborative benefits are lost along the way. The field is big there's more than 1,000 cities with population over 500,000, another 4,000 cities with population between 100,000 and 500,000. So we really need to be able to move faster. We need to change, like the vaccine development was changed from 10 years to 1 year. That's the type of ambition level that we as ecosystem developers should set together globally. So the field just keeps developing too slow. So it's time to innovate a new approach. And this is basically what we have created as a first privately led global collaborative ecosystem development project, where ecosystem development knowledge combined with digital expertise and close ongoing operations with ecosystem is key to success. So I'll stop here and I'll pass back to Oscar and Matthias, and also happy to take questions now, or we can have a Q&A session towards the end of the whole presentation.
Thank you, Valto. We already have some questions. Maybe it makes sense to basically, because those are related to some slides that you presented.
Yeah, I've collected all the questions here. If I read them, is it okay for Valto if you just cover them?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. First, actually, there is one question that I think you can cover it. It came before, submitted online from Alistair Brett. If you start from that, the question was, how will startup commons integrate these complex and adaptive systems, the science of ecosystems, into building an app?
Yeah, so basically the key is, of course, with everything is this iterative process of both plan and implementation at different levels. So that's really the key aspect of here. And then also utilizing the latest technology developments that are out there, and really looking at more future-proofed technologies than the legacy type technologies that most of the existing softwares out there are running. And then one more aspect is really the looking at things more horizontal than vertical, where vertically typically most applications are silos themselves, with funnel on top and then silos and ultimately database on bottom, where information is put in and then pulled out in that type of siloed manner, and more looking at the connectivity between existing applications and then only developing those applications that really don't exist or are not adapting themselves already into this more new paradigm.
So, okay, I think that covers the question. If Alistair has something to ask from further, maybe he can write it to the chat. But the next question was from Thais Claude. The question was referring to the challenges slides that you had in presentation. Challenge 4 is my main question. Who is the designated driver to develop and to manage the ecosystem? Is it from top down, or like bottom up, or backwards, or a balance?
Yeah, so it's very much the balance. What we call it's in the middle. So it's basically looking at coming together as the key stakeholders in the ecosystem to either identify an existing actor or actually establish a new actor, which we refer as ecosystem operator or ecosystem orchestrator function, that should be represented by all the key stakeholders, either at board level or ownership level, but definitely in setting the agenda and collecting the agenda from the ecosystem actors, and mainly just looking then on that things get done, not so much of governing aspect. So the governing aspect of that ecosystem operator should be collectively by key ecosystem actors, and then the operator ecosystem operators should only be operative actor to make things happen and keep track of things, measures that things get done, and what are the outcomes, and reporting back to those who represent the ecosystem as a whole.
Thanks, Valto. And next question was from Brenda Ures, Mayday. On sustainability challenges, do you mean financial sustainability or also includes sustainable development? Example given quintuple helix perspective.
Yeah, so it's sustainability in all different dimensions. So of course, financial sustainability is a key aspect of that. Without financial sustainability, it's really hard to maintain any other type of sustainability. It's not impossible, but it's harder. So key aspect of financial sustainability, of course, is to try to drive cost as much down as possible. So whatever financial resources they are currently available, trying to get things done with existing long-term budgets instead of project funding. And when using project funding, then being very smart about not building up costs that are unsustainable if the project, or at the time when project funding ends, and these types of things. And then, but it also requires careful thought of participant planning. So meaning that there's always a handoff at even at people level, that there's knowledgeable people in pairs to continue when one is people move around. So when someone leaves, that the things don't stop because there was only one person that had the knowledge. So documenting things, building organizational memory, and these types of things.
All right, thanks. And next question from Alistair Brett again. People are at different level in ecosystems. People at different level in ecosystems will have different mental models. How will you deal with this?
That's a key aspect of that if and when ecosystem development is done like it is done in these days in many places, that there is no organization dedicated around that function, it means that it's very much based on individuals' effort and action. And organizations are designed to be a melting pot, whether it's organizations at different level, to find a systematic model, a system model to manage those operations in that sense. And inside that system, there are processes that are designed to handle how inputs go, how contributions go in, how inputs go in, how decisions are made. And those processes internally for the organization are, of course, adjusted based on the targets and desired outputs.
All right, thanks, Valto. Michael Meeks asks, what are your top 3 personal recommendations for how to dramatically advance ecosystem building in our regions?
How many was it?
Top three personal recommendations. Which has the most impacting?
Yeah, I just in the sense of time as well here today, I'm just going to basically leave it at this one that we are presenting today. And it's not to be selfish, but it's basically we have put all of that, all of our learnings, and tried to come up with the model that we think is innovative in its nature, and that is definitely different, yet seems to resonate also with a lot of the ecosystems as a potential solutions worth trying, and Oscar can share more about that later. But other than that, more great answers are available in that free Ecosystem Development Academy curriculum that we have available in video recording for more details about other actions that can be also looked after.
Thanks, Walter. Okay, this question seems to be pouring in. If you want at some point to take continue with the presentation, Oscar can say, but we can take these questions now.
Yeah, I think that we can continue with the presentation, and then we can reply all of them. Yeah, at the end.
At the end, Leah, let's cover rest of these questions at the end, and thanks for all the great questions. They will be answered, so don't worry. But for the time's sake, some of the questions will be covered already at the next phase of the presentation. So we'll continue from that, and please get those questions coming. Thanks.
All right. So we can continue then with the. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
All right. So this ecosystem development, or this collaborative approach that we are about to present, is basically the way to get started, or the way to initiate this digital journey to bring more collaboration and to eventually remove ecosystem fragmentation and disconnectivity at all levels. And really understanding that this digital transformation process for ecosystems cannot be solved by siloed applications or isolated short-term projects. It's required to have in mind like a fully complete big picture, and then step by step start adding the different components that are part of this big puzzle, and also building like really strong connections and collaborations and specific frameworks basically to enable this type of collaborative approach. And really to have this big picture in mind to really connect and enable data flows within and between startup ecosystems globally, again to remove ecosystem fragmentation and really initiate a digital transformation for ecosystems. And again, the most important thing is to have this long-term vision in mind, so you can understand what you are building, but starting as simple as possible. And basically what Balto said, so basically having this whole ecosystem architecture in mind, an architecture that should take into account how the different ecosystem segments interact with each other, requiring a transformation for business creators or supporting functions, governments, the private sector, and other actors to collect and share data, process data, and create analytical insights and information to measure ecosystem performance, which will be underpinned by a need to ensure, I would say, inclusiveness in terms of geographic and vertical coverage, transparency, accountability, and comparability of ecosystem data, while at the same time also protecting privacy and stimulating innovation and investment in data, and really providing insights to local ecosystem as well as the global level. An architecture, again, like this, so a data sharing infrastructure formed by data assets distributed across multiple and different sources, the organizations that operate and maintain them, and the processes, the policies, and guides that describe how to use and manage the data for the benefit of everyone. And where also a big important and key aspect to make this scenario really work is this standardized ecosystem data infrastructure, which is essentially a switchboard application that would then make it easy to manage connections between all connected applications. It would be like a system where via single connection, any number of connections with other applications could be enabled and managed, and transactions follow, having one connection per application to connect to any number of connected applications. But starting with something very simple in mind as a first module and the first end-to-end and data pipes to start building. And basically starting with that module, and then as long as things are progressing, so adding other components and being connected with the rest of the components of the ecosystem to basically to start more collecting more accurate data and having like a more clear perspective about what's happening at the ecosystem level, who is doing what and why, and things like that. So again, the first this first collaboration project would be the ecosystem mapping app, which is, I would say, a global common use case that we have validated for many years in all type of ecosystems with different maturity levels, and basically because one of the main problems that ecosystems are facing due to this ecosystem fragmentation is to basically to maintain a holistic picture of the constantly developing and evolving ecosystem, basically to measure the services and results of the different development projects and policy actions, and to really collect and maintain and share this data openly for the benefit of everyone in the ecosystem. And in the context of ecosystem development, we define ecosystem mapping as the process to maintain and cater comprehensive and dynamic information about the different available services and organizations, as well as to be able to identify gaps in available services for ongoing ecosystem development, and really helping ecosystem builders and ecosystem operators to gain in-depth understanding of the ecosystem that they are operating in, not only by providing, I would say, a general sense of the number and maturity level of startups available in one specific territory or ecosystem, but also, and most importantly, providing an accurate and objective information about the ecosystem actors and the infrastructure that support startups from ideation to growth, as well as level of connectedness amongst the different ecosystem actors in terms of sharing information, knowledge, and data to jointly operate in a more effective way. So if you think about all these stacks that are needed to map all the assets available in your ecosystem, so a lot of that work is being done manually nowadays, and doing that manually is simply crazy. So we need to come up with a better approach to basically to bring more effectiveness to that process that is really important to support innovation and entrepreneurship, and really to initiate a transition from this manual mapping exercise that we have done many times in the past through workshop type of approach, to basically to make this transition from that to support services canvas mapping with these templates that we also developed in the past to collect information in a standardized way, and to finally make it through ecosystem mapping application for more automation and to bring more effectiveness to the different parties that are involved in this game. So again, starting very simple, and basically having a solution or having an application that is basically able to map the ecosystem in different ways. Starting with functionalities like this, so basically integrating the startup development phases framework that Balto mentioned in the beginning as the framework to bring a structure on the process of the startup journey, taking into account not only the different phases, but also how to develop the startup from product development perspective, but also from the organization perspective. Also functionalities for this application, like start documenting those services that are supporting startups and entrepreneurs in the different phases. So collecting basic information in a very standardized ways, and also adding as many details as possible to basically to get better understanding about what are the functionalities of the services, how many times those services per year are delivered, etc. And also this is one key aspect of this application to start having like a library of service templates. So based on global best practices, basically to collect services that are already working in different ecosystems, and basically embed them into the application, basically to help customize local needs and to basically deliver and operate the services faster, and start having like a more visual way to basically to understand your ecosystem. So with a simple view, you can then understand which are the main gaps, where the main services are focused in the startup journey. What do you need to implement for basically to cover those gaps, etc. And also adding filtering service options, basically to have like a more clear view of the services, and use different filters like phases or dates or location or how those services are delivered, etc. So you can get access to a full demo video on this link that we have provided on this slide, where you can see in motion how the ecosystem mapping works, and really have basically focus on these three areas. So in one hand, to basically to use the startup development phases as the framework to basically to categorize services between idea to business and talent to organization logic, and in general to bring a structure to the process of startup creation, and also adding the visual interface to basically to make it easier for users to adjust to make any changes on the ecosystem mapping process, and also to start basically having like an inventory of things, and then of course knowing that it's impossible to do this exercise, mapping exercise alone, to basically to enable the technology that is needed to connect the mapping app with other sources of information in order to get in the long term a more accurate picture about what's happening in your ecosystem, and really enabling this type of connectivity with third parties. Some basic figures about the project that we are looking at. So basically we are looking at the duration of the project, something around 9 months, and then having a fresh batch of ecosystems joining this project between 2 and 10. we also want to be realistic in that sense, and I would say that that an optimal way, and as a first project, so most likely we will have something between 4 and 6, being that a number which is quite good, basically to manage the whole project. So this project, as also Valto said in the presentation, in the same way that we have condensed all our knowledge in our startup ecosystem development academy. So we have also put all this knowledge into this application. So all these projects and ecosystems that we are working with are all there, and basically the estimated budget for this project is this figure that you can see there in the presentation. And of course, doing it in a collaborative way, it brings some benefits. Like the first one is, of course, the financial benefits. So the total cost of the project will be divided by as many ecosystems joining to this project. And while we will take into account common needs from all the ecosystems joining to this project, we will also take into account the local setup and basically that is needed to run the application locally. Also, by working together, you will be able to connect with your global peers and basically exchange all type of knowledge and learning experience. So we want to really enable this type of truly collaborative spirit. And also, we will be focusing on bringing standardization, in bringing interoperability, aggregations, comparability, information distribution, and automation. So in a nutshell, so we are looking at building more with less and faster because of the collaboration angle. And then when it comes to the project implementation, maybe Matthias, you can jump here and bring some details about this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for Oscar. So far, they will be. I try to keep it like fast and neat because there will be a lot of good questions, and we don't go too much over time. So please, next slide. Yeah. Okay. So we have some guiding principles for this project approach that when we started to planning that how we will how this will be implemented. So application development this will be done under the open standard principles to guarantee the independency, and that it will be completely vendor neutral. There will be no vendor locks from our parts, and nobody else will have a vendor lock for this. So it enables the flexibility, the choice, and interoperability and efficiency. And the next guiding principle is that the ecosystem mapping app allows this data flow by default. So instead of considering data to be it should be closed or private, then consider what should be open, and consider that data should be open unless there is a specific reason for it to be closed. And of course, these GDPRs and so forth, they will be taken account. So as far as data can be open, it will be open. And the globally connected to enable digital connectivity and technical interoperability and data sharing within and between the ecosystems and nationally and globally. So the connectivity is really the key here. And please, Oscar, next. So we have a lot of deliverables during this project, but here is some highlights. I don't go too detail in those because you get these slides after the presentation. So, but in the timeline, it starts from the scope documentation and communication plans, and when it goes and then to the product components. Which will be user stories, reference architecture, and so forth. And open standard agreement for templates and data sharing will be in that part. Then it will be online repository, the website with published open standards and related documentation, and then to live version. And from live version, I want to highlight that application development tooling and documentation and a copy of current development setup will be shared for all the participants. So after this project, everybody can pretty much, if they want to develop it further, they have all the tools to keep developing it, or they can just stay and operate it. And dissemination plan, actions and KPIs, and collaborative learnings, all those good benefits that will be get from collaborative projects. And future phases plan. So this is there will be continuum. This is not in that sense. This is not like a typical project approach like Oscar presentations. It clearly showed in the beginning that there will be some continuum, and final reporting and global promotion, of course, after that. Please, Oscar, next. So when we started to think how this project, how it would look like, and how it would be possible to count the costs and the timeline. So we divided it to the seven different working packages, and we defined who will be working in each who will be needed in each working packages, and then how it would show in the timeline. So it will be in parallel or many of those working packages, but the duration will be approximately 9 months. And if Oscar goes to next. So these key, then we identified the key roles, who will be needed, and from in which working packages they will be needed. And it will be shown here. Here are the key roles for this project, and the project manager, owner, and consultant, mainly helping for the project manager, senior backend experts, backend developer, senior frontend expert, and frontend developer, data expert, and UI UX designers. And based on these key roles, we have calculated. If you go to the next slide, we have calculated the estimated project budgeting. So in general budget, it would be like 130,000 euros, but you get collaborative savings when you general cost will be divided between the as many ecosystems that are joining. So this is another good thing that you get from this collaborative approach, that you get much more value with much less pricing. So, and of course there will be some kind of coordination fee, because that is one thing that doesn't scale more there will be ecosystems joining, that more there will be also coordination between the ecosystems, and but it's included that those numbers in the bottom. So if you go to the next phase, we actually let's go to the next slide. This will be shown like this is the juicy slide, which shows that how much value you can get. I mean, from less amount of money with more ecosystems are joining. So this is how it's possible also to complete this kind of project approach, this kind of project with everybody benefits financially, but everybody benefits also. Everybody get the collaboration, learnings, and everything else as well. So yeah, that's in a nutshell how this project has been like built. And Oscar, maybe you can continue from here.
Yes, thank you, Matthias. Yes, that's a reality. So the more ecosystems will join, the cheaper it will get per each ecosystem, while also accelerating all the learnings that can be collected along the way. And really, this process has already started. So it started a few weeks ago, where basically we announced this collaborative approach. And basically, we are now in the moment where we are collecting or we are receiving the first request coming from different parts of the world. And also, it's important to communicate that this project we want to be also. I wouldn't say selective, but we need to take into account some criteria that we believe are really important towards building this and building a good foundational base towards the long-term project. And those criteria are basically to have like at least a strong team with 3 members with different backgrounds. They can be part-time. Ideally, it would be full-time, but at least we should have people covering different skills, like the digital, more like also the ecosystem development side and things like that. Also, we need to take into account the sustainability factor again. So as Walter mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, the world is full of this type of mapping exercise where we see that it is the beginning, but at the same time, it's the end of that project. So every time that there is a new ecosystem mapping project, then after a few months, then another mapping project must have to be initiated again. So we need to look at that and find like the ecosystems that are looking at bringing more sustainability in that sense. And then, of course, again, so we can't do that alone. We need collaboration with other ecosystem actors. And that's important that any ecosystem who wants to apply to this project, they should also bring the interoperability component as well. And of course, the most important thing, so it's the budget secures. If there's no budget in place to be allocated in this, that basically communicates that the ecosystem mapping is now a key component for that ecosystem, and basically it doesn't make any sense to spend this type of resources towards building this application. So who should apply to this project? So definitely ecosystem builders and operators in their different forms. Sometimes it's ecosystem forums, sometimes it's a coalition of different organizations, it's NGOs, it can be public-private partnership type of entities. In a nutshell, they are those umbrella type of entities that are looking at the ecosystem in a very holistically way, try to get deeper understanding about what's happening, to basically to find the ways to effectively support startups and entrepreneurs in the different phases, and ultimately to take their own ecosystem to the next level and make it more vibrant. And again, the collaborative aspect is really important. So we highly recommend that an ecosystem is represented at least by 2 local ecosystem organizations. So what type of resources are needed for during the project? So basically, again, 2 team members working at operative and management and in permanent position, meaning that they are not going to leave the organization in 1 month or something like that. So they are not temporary workers. So they are basically part of a stable staff. Then when it comes to the availability for the project, we don't require too much time from their side in this beginning of the project. But definitely we are looking at having some skills like project management experience, like they basically that they enjoy using digital tools like Trello or Slack or Google Drive, that they are used to work with specifications and documentation. They are eager to learn, and also they have some level of understanding around ecosystem development. And after the project, there are basically two options. So one option is that you can still continue operating the ecosystem mapping application, but also we have the options basically to develop the ecosystem mapping app with your own resources, and basically develop other functionalities that you may want to be developed for your ecosystem. So for the option one, the resources are pretty much the same as we mentioned earlier. But then if you are looking at developing the application, then you also need to take into account other profiles, other skills more connected with the digital world, like people for service design, front end, data expert with some skills around technologies like React or Jamstack, and also around data modeling and UI, UX. So what do you get at the end of this project? So what's the value? So of course, you will get a tool, you will get an application that you as an ecosystem builder will make your life easier, and basically develop and operate it in a way that is a shared resource. We understand that the digital economy of a city cannot be it must be into local hands. It cannot be into foreign country hands or private hands. It should be as a result of local coordination and collaboration at ecosystem level. So that's why the software is basically will be shareable among ecosystem actors, and also the data belongs to the rightful owners. So users at ecosystem level decide what data they want to share and to whom. Of course, as part of this project, you will also get more learnings, more skills, more tools, more awareness about the value of data, a systematic and scalable way to assess your ecosystem and related data, an open approach to increase collaboration and reuse of resources at ecosystem level. Of course, more knowledge and around specific technology like API economy or serverless or Jamstack or React, and in general more skills for this type of projects. And eventually, basically, you will get automated data flowing to you to basically to get like a faster and more accurate picture of your ecosystem. And here we have some good reasons why to join now. Of course, there is always some level of risk when you want to join for the first time in something like really new or innovative. But also there are some advantages to join now. Initially, basically, it's a way to show leadership and basically to communicate through inspiration for the world by basically contributing to build new best practices as this first collaborative project. Because we will use basically this first case to be globally showcased and a case study for many other ecosystems all around the world. Also, it will allow you to be the voice of your ecosystem, to be heard in this standard development process, where many fundamental decisions will be made in this first collaborative project, and maybe it will be harder to change this. So it's important that your interests are reflected in the foundational setup. Then, of course, collaborate with peers who represent different ecosystems. You will get access to share data from a statistical perspective for global benchmarking. And the last sentence is, well, it's so funny. It's successful for your ecosystem, then claim credit for it. If not, you can always blame Startup Commons for any failures. And basically, the process to apply is quite easy. So we have already shared a form where you can leave your motivations why you want to apply for this project. Then we will study and we will identify if those that are requested to join the project are basically fulfilling the key criteria that we define. And then the target is to basically to initiate this project in the Q1 of the next year. But always having this long-term ecosystem development perspective, starting with something simple like and very much needed, like this ecosystem mapping application, and then once we finalize it, to basically to get consensus around what's next to be developed, and so forth, and basically to apply this thinking in the long term towards orchestrating and basically building this digital transformation for ecosystems. So again, we are looking at initiating this in the first part of next year. We have already got initial interest coming from different parts of the world, specifically from Southeast Asia and also from Europe and North America. But still, the application is still open. We want to be sure that we collect enough amount of ecosystems joining to this project, and then at some point in the first weeks of next year, we will start basically communicating how to start this process and with whom. All right, so that's everything from my side, and now we can basically jump to more questions.
Yes, I have taken all the questions up from the Q&A and from the chat, so everything is here. And without a further ado, maybe we just start. I want to take this one first. From Sharik Farouk, he asked that what will you make with data? Want to take it, or Valto?
Yeah, so I mean, there are many things that you can take with data. So again, for specifically for ecosystem builders, especially to have like a more accurate picture of your ecosystem, but also you can use the data in many other ways, like for example, bringing more effectiveness to any matchmaking process happening at ecosystem level, like connecting ecosystem items like startups with investors, or startups with mentors, or individuals with startups to join the startups as co-founders or as team members, or bring more effectiveness to people joining events, etc. So in general, to bring more effectiveness to that process, and also find a way to communicate faster what's happening at ecosystem level. If you, for example, if you imagine that you are new into one ecosystem and you want to basically to catch up with the ecosystem, there should be a way where the system can drop you with notifications fitting to your profile that are suitable for you. So, I mean, there are many scenarios where data is very relevant.
Yes, thanks. Next question. This actually goes to Valto. Valto, because this is related to his presentation. So it was anonymous question. If the top-down folks won't let go to control to allow bottom-up entrepreneurs or stakeholders to be equals at the design and decision-making table, how can that be changed? So this is related to previous questions which covered in after Valto's presentation.
So that is a key part of this maturity dimension of ecosystem development, that basically it takes its own time until all of the key actors in the ecosystem arrive to that point that they cannot go any further, or they cannot get things better unless they involve all the relevant actors equally to take part. And of course, we have to be realistic and identify that there are some countries or some ecosystems in the world where they will never necessarily achieve those levels. But then in those points, it's hard to get much done. But the good thing about the freedom of entrepreneurship is that most likely than other ecosystems that are more ecosystem minded are welcoming those eager entrepreneurs to build companies out of their ecosystems. So it kind of by trying to control too much and not include key actors eventually will lead to a point of the talent and quality entrepreneurs leaving the ecosystems.
Okay, thanks, Valto. And then here comes this was also after your presentation, so I guess this is for you also. This was a similar question from Nicolas Avril. Ideally, we would all feel that we are on our planet, one humankind, and we would all be happy to work together and create better future for all. But alas, it seems that countries are competing against each other, cities are competing against each other to get more funds. How are you planning to addressing this? So maybe to help, in which country will be the first ecosystems to be mapped?
So of course, again, being realistic that we can't help all the ecosystems, and some ecosystems may be in shape that they need to work a lot on their own before they could take part in this type of collaborative global collaborative development. So that's why we are doing this application approach, that we are not trying to identify which are the right ecosystems from our perspective, but we are making this project available, and then we will only select from those who apply and look at their conditions. And when we look at the making this project successful, of course, we will not include ecosystems where we don't believe it's realistic to help them, or where their maturity level is far too underdeveloped to take part compared to other participants in this collaborative project. But at the same time, we are not looking, for example, only big ones or only small ones. It all comes down to the key ingredients and key profiles of those ecosystems that we will choose to take part in this project.
Thanks, Valto. Actually, these next two questions also came during your presentation, so maybe you can continue. Kiana Daniels asked, hello, thanks for hosting this conversation. I'm based on Dayton, Ohio, and our main challenge is getting our partners to commit to the collective work. They verbally agree and commit, but the action is missing, and then it falls on one organization. How do we overcome that? What's the best way to incentivize our partners outside of funding? So this is something that is familiar, then it's not only in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, that's actually very good question, and it is quite common, and we also think that this project may actually be helpful in those situations, because when you are it's not only at ecosystem level, if it's also like when you're a founder starting a startup company, it's hard to be equal and taking leadership at the same time. So by having this kind of external leadership in an even bigger, broader collaborative project allows everyone to in local ecosystem level to join, instead of looking at each other and saying making decisions who should take a lead here in local level. So that may be one solution. But of course, we are doing this first time now with this approach. But that's one of the aspects where we know there's challenges of finding the actor how do we come across of this being equal but needing leadership at the same time. And we hope this will bring some potential solution for that as well.
Thanks, Valto. I think this next question was about the challenge 4, which was who was in the driver's seat in your presentation. Appropriate challenge 4. Shouldn't we be more autopilotic and self-organizing in perspective?
Yeah, so these are not topics that are like one thing is better than the other. The fact is that we need both. But you can just look at your local city, that it's impossible for you to build a public transportation with bottom-up approach. So you just can't do certain things with certain type of actions. We can't build our own roads. We can't build our own parks where we want to. We need these collaborative actions in some actions, but at the same time, it's not top-down actors to say when do you walk to work, or which road do you take with that public transportation. So this is very much to find the right balance between what belongs to which bucket.
Thanks, Valto. I think this next question came during the Oscar's presentation. Ajit Nigam asked that connecting the multiple ecosystem, should it be done with the sector-specific approach or sector-agnostic? Big challenge in India.
Yeah, so that really depends on how each ecosystem is structured and developed. So sometimes we feel that in any specific ecosystem, there's no specific industry that is more relevant than other. And then a generic approach is maybe more suitable in those cases, while we can also find an ecosystem where a specific vertical or industry is clearly developed and is basically highlighted. So maybe it makes sense to start this process with that specific vertical. But in any case, the most important thing is that there's no one or other direction. So basically, it's important to understand what's happening in your local context and use that as the first starting point to start developing further.
Thanks, Oscar. This next question from Angela Vandenberg. This Atomicos State of European Tech report that launched yesterday featured data on the large gap in inclusivity in startup ecosystem across genders, gender, ethnicity, etc. Research on infrastructure shows that the infrastructure's development always embed exclusives, either by design or accident, especially when they claim neutrality. In the ways they create and discipline relationships and knowledge and manage the flows of resources. Have you reflected on what exclusives or your infrastructure design will or may generate, and how have you worked to mitigate this rather than exacerbate this existing problem?
Yeah, well, that's a very deep and good question. As such, I would say that even during this first project, it's still relatively early to take part in those types of things. We will initially start focusing with very generic level data, basically the type of data that would be anyway publicly available, but it's not really properly organized. So it's not none of those things basically have that type of aspect that it would reflect a bias. But what is possible is that throughout the process and going through with this type of any kind of standard approach, that at least it will start to highlight clear areas where there may be red flags coming up about currently existing biases in context of some of the information when compared with each other in a way that was not standardized and compared earlier. But that is extremely important point and topic, but it's definitely something that we will have more ability to work and look once there is such data available through this type of approach, where it's initially first even tried to standardize across multiple ecosystems and within ecosystem.
Thanks, Valdo. That was very deep question and quite deep answer also. So thanks for that. Next one from Heather Herring. Will there be some AI to allow startups to reach all ecosystems to find services/programs that meet their requirements?
So yeah, I can take this. So basically, I also connect this with the previous question about what can be done with data. Is that first and foremost in how we use data as people and humans, basically reading and trying to get insights out of data. Data, of course, also enables automation that is impossible without having data. You can't trigger, if this then that, if you don't have a data signal indicating that something happened. So data is very much enabling also the automation. And then going and connecting to this question specifically with AI, is that data is kind of a step in between getting to the benefits of AI. If you don't have data, and if you don't collect data, and if you don't get to more real-time data, then you don't get the benefits of AI either. So there is no possible way of getting from manual world to AI-driven world without going through the laborious process of being able to collect data that AI needs to drive the benefits that it can generate. So that is a very key point, that the more data you have, the better the quality of the data is, the smarter the AI is, and vice versa. The poorer the quality or less data there is, the more stupid the AI will be.
Thanks, Walter. That was very well highlighted. Okay, the next question was from Thais Glood. The question was, the budget is per each city ecosystem. So I already answered this to the chat that yes, the presented the total cost will be divided between the participants. So yes, the budget is per city or ecosystems who is joining. So that's for that. And next question was from Jas Panesar. Panesar. Yeah. What period of sustainability will the initial MVP budget to develop this platform provide? So what kind of sustainability is MVP?
Yeah, so I can take that as well.
Yeah.
So basically, the sustainability, we can support our target. We don't yet know all the budgets and the commitments of each of the participants. We haven't selected them yet. We have candidates, and we know X amount of information. So we don't know yet also what is the balance between how much they want to continue either just to operate or also develop further. But basically the key aspect is from our side is the technologies that we choose to run these applications and infrastructure that we develop, that they are extremely cost efficient and only dependent on the volume of the usage. So if the usage levels are high, then typically the budgets will be there. If those are low, then the costs of running this infrastructure is also very low. And also key aspect is that it doesn't require continuous development or maintaining servers because it's on top of serverless infrastructure.
Thanks. I think that covers the question. This is the last question so far. I mean, this next question is the last. This came during the Oscar's presentation, and it was from Sharik Farok. He asked that what do you mean by Illustrator? I actually missed that part when you mentioned the Illustrator from the presentation. But what did you mean by that?
I don't know really. I'm not sure if I mentioned Illustrator.
Okay.
I think I didn't mention that.
Okay. Well,
I guess it can be orchestrator then. It sounds similar, but not sure. But anyway, we'll follow up and we can check our slides if we have that term somewhere.
No, yeah, I think we don't have that term, but yeah, if Sharik wants to clarify the question, also he can write it to the chat, or you can contact us as well if there was something that left unclear. So I think we covered all the questions now so far. So maybe Oscar, you want to say a few words, or Valto?
Yes. So it was like a really great session. It was a bit longer than we planned, but either way, we got really good questions from the audience, and hope that we were able to solve all of them. As we mentioned in the beginning, so we are going to circulate this presentation and the material that we have used for a session today. And also we will follow up with over email with new questions or any other things that we didn't cover during this session, to make sure that we are able to cover all the angles. So this is from my side. Thanks a lot, Valto. Thanks a lot, Matthias. Any final words from your side?
Yeah, thanks everyone for taking part, and we extremely appreciate of the questions asked, and we were hoping that we will get some questions, and we are very positively surprised about the quality and the volume of the questions. So thanks everyone for sharing those over, and feel free to continue sending questions afterwards when seeing the recording or looking at the materials. Each question helps us also to better understand where we have gaps in our communication, or where we can then potentially point into much broader and deeper resources than just trying to give quick answers on the spot. So please keep questions coming, and thanks from my side.
Yeah, thanks from my side too. I think Oscar and Valto already covered everything that it needs to be said. So very pleased for all the questions that you provided us. So thanks for each participant.
All right, so let's finalize here. Thanks again, everyone, and see you next time. Bye.
Right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.